Hey Panthers, this is your guided lesson on ratios. I know that we did ratios last week, so this should be a nice review. Getting right into the lesson. It says use what you already know that a fraction is a way to compare a part to a whole. So taking a look at our first problem right here. Carlos has 4 tennis balls and 5 baseballs. And it's asking us 2 questions. How can you compare the number of each type of ball to the total number of balls? And then how can you compare the number of one type to the number of the other type? So it says use the math you already know to solve the problem. What fraction of the balls are tennis balls? So I'm going to write this as a fraction, and I'm going to write the amount of tennis balls I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tennis balls, and my total number of balls is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So remember, I am writing my fractions using the slash because I don't have the option to make the fraction on my computer. So the 4 is my numerator and the 9 is my denominator. And then the B says what fraction of the balls are baseballs? Okay, well I have 5 baseballs and my total number of balls is 9. It says you can also compare the 2 quantities with words. You can write the numerical comparison of 4 tennis balls to 9 total balls as simply 4 to 9. Write a comparison of the number of baseballs to the number of total balls using the word to. So using the word to, I'm going to say that there are 5 baseballs to 9 total balls. And D, you can also use a colon to separate quantities when you compare numbers. Use this notation to compare the numbers of each type of ball to the total. So if I'm doing tennis balls, I know I have 4 tennis balls. I'm going to use my colon. So 4 tennis balls to 9 total balls. And then if I'm going to do the baseballs, I've got 5 baseballs to 9 total balls. And my final question on page 1. How does each of these notations, 4 over 9 as the fraction form, 4 to 9 as the word form, and 4 to 9 as the colon form, compare the number of tennis balls to the total number of balls? So each of these notations first tells us the number of tennis balls, then the total number of balls. And then there's a symbol that separates it. A symbol separates the numbers. So no matter how you write this, you can write it as a fraction, you can write it using the word to, or you can write it using a colon. These are all going to be compared. They're all comparing 2 numbers the same way. So they are all equivalent. Moving on to part 2. It says a ratio is a way to compare 2 different quantities. So sometimes you compare 2 different parts, so part to part, where you're comparing there are 4 tennis balls to 5 baseballs. And then other times you're comparing one part to the total amount or the whole amount. So like 4 tennis balls to 9 total balls. So this is a little bit of a summary of page 1. So to write the ratio, you can use the word to or a colon or using the fraction bar. So right here are all representing the ratio of 4 compared to 5. And here is a great chart using examples showing you part-to-part ratios, part-whole ratios, and whole-to-part ratios, all 3 ways. Really quick, just before we do our reflection, you do sometimes see these phrases for each and for every to describe ratios, and I just don't want you to get confused. So sometimes these are examples for 4 tennis balls for every 5 baseballs, or 4 tennis balls for each set of 5 baseballs. So don't get confused if you see those phrases as well. And now we can do a reflection here. It says, suppose Carlos was given a basketball. What is the ratio of tennis balls to baseballs? So my ratio of tennis balls to baseballs is still going to be 4 tennis balls to 5 baseballs. And now it says, what is the ratio of total balls to tennis balls? So the first number has to be total number of balls. So Carlos had 9, but he just was given a basketball. So now Carlos has 10 balls, and he still has 4 tennis balls. Let's compare the ratios before Carlos got the basketball and after he got it. How did the basketball affect the ratios? So when we did a part-to-part ratio, which was taking 2 parts of what Carlos had, it didn't change. So let's write that down. The new basketball does not affect the part-to-part ratio. It does affect the whole to part ratio because the total amount changed. If I could type, I'm sorry, guys. So this page right here, page 2, is a great spot to come back to if you get stuck anywhere. It's kind of like a little note sheet. So let's get right in now to our guided instruction. It says, read the problem below, then explore different ways to compare quantities using ratios. Crisp Mix is 4 cups of cereal, 3 cups of pecans, and 2 cups of raisins to make a snack mix. How can you use ratios to compare the quantities of each ingredient and the total amount of snacks mix? So the first thing you can do is picture it. You can reuse this diagram. If you can see, they show you perfect little cups of cereal, of pecans, and of raisins. And then once you can close your eyes and visualize that, then you can model it. And here's an example using a tape diagram, and that's just using squares or boxes to represent 1. So we can still see here that our cereal, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, just like we had 4 cups of cereal up here. But we can see that and model it, they took it one step further. They've got their cereal, they have 4 cups, 3 cups of pecans, 2 cups of raisins, but then they did their total mix. So they added all of them together and then they made one large tape diagram. The next step is connecting it. It says, now you will solve the problem from the previous page using ratios to compare the quantities. It says, what are 3 ways to write the ratio of cups to cereal of 2 cups to pecans? So the 3 ways that we can write it, remember we had 4 cups of cereal and 3 cups of pecans. So we can write it, remember I can't use the fraction correctly because I'm on the computer. So I'm going to write it as 4 cups of cereal over 3 cups of pecans. That's going to be way 1. The second way is going to be using the word 2. So 4 cups to 3 cups. And the last way is using the colon, 4 to 3. And then number 3 says, does the ratio of cereal to pecans compare part to part part to whole, or whole to part. So I know when I see whole, that means the total amount of everything. In this case, I've got 2 parts of the total, so I know that I am comparing part to part right now. I have 2 different parts. And it says, what is the total amount of snack mix? I'm actually going to go back to number 3 and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 cups of snack mix all together. So the total number is 9. And then number 5, write ratios to compare the amount of each ingredient to the total amount of snack mix. So if I was to compare cereal, I'm going to use the colons. That's the easiest way to write it on the computer. So for cereal, we've got 4 cups of cereal to 9 total cups. For pecans, we've got 3 cups to 9 total cups. And for raisins, we've got 2 cups to 9 total cups. And then number 6, explain how you can write a ratio to compare 2 different quantities. This is extremely important. You need to remember that the number that is written first is the number that you write down first. So how I can write this is going to be, I determine the first number they want me to compare and write it down. Then I write the comparison using the word to, using a colon, or using a fraction bar. Then I write the second number they want me to compare. The order of the numbers should match the order that's given. That's so important. You can do everything right, but if you figure out the right numbers and then you write them in the incorrect order, it's incorrect. So that is extremely important. The order of the numbers should match the order that it's given. Next part is trying it. Use what you learned about writing ratios to solve these problems. Leo blew up 7 balloons. Kathy blew up 5 balloons. Write each ratio in at least 2 different ways. So I'm going to use the word to and the colon because the fraction is kind of a pain on the computer. So the ratio of Kathy's balloons to Leo's balloons. Kathy had 5 balloons. Leo had 7 balloons. So we're going to write it as 5:7. And then we're also going to write it as 5:7. The ratio of Leo's balloons to Kathy's balloons. So 7 comes first because Leo's name came first. 7 to 5 using a colon, and then 7 to 5 using the word to. And the ratio of total balloons to Leo's balloons. The total amount of balloons is 5 plus 7 is 12. So I'm going to do 12. I'm going to compare that using a colon. And Leo had 7 balloons. So 12 to 7. And I'm writing that 2 ways. And looking at number 8. Each class has the goal of selling 100 tickets to the school carnival. Miss Garcia's class sells 87 tickets. Mr. Carpenter's class sells 113 tickets. Write each ratio in at least 2 different ways. Ratio of Miss Garcia's sales to the goal. So Miss Garcia's class sold 87 tickets. I'm going to write the colon, and the goal was 100 tickets. I'm going to write that in 2 ways using the word to. 87 to 100. The ratio of Mr. Carpenter's sales to the goal. Mr. Carpenter sold 113 tickets using my colon, and the goal was 100. Writing that my second way, 113 to 100. And my final problem on page 4 is the ratio of Mr. Carpenter's sales to Miss Garcia's sales. Mr. Carpenter sold 113 tickets using my colon. Miss Garcia sold 87 tickets. And writing that 2 ways, 113 to 87. Now moving into the guided practice. So this is an example below, and we're going to use this to solve problems 9 through 11. So if you get stuck on problems 9 through 11, you can come back and use this example. Ahmad's mom, hey Ahmad's mom, prepares a plate with 5 peaches and 4 apples for the 6 students in Ahmad's study group. What is the ratio of fruit to students? So this is a way that they showed their work using a tape diagram. The amount of fruits, they just put the P's for peaches and the A's for apples, and then you can see that this would be the total, and here are the 6 students. It says the solution is add 5 plus 4 equals 9. There are 9 pieces of fruit in all. There are 6 students. The ratio of fruit to students is 9 to 6. The ratio can also be written as 9:6 and 9/6. All right. It says Kaya received these ribbons at swim meets. What is the ratio of first place ribbons to third place ribbons? So if we wanted to draw the tape diagram, we could use shapes. And I could draw first place ribbons. There's a ribbon. Here are my first place ribbons. And there are my third place ribbons. So I can have a tape diagram. I know that it's probably a lot easier just to write this, so just draw whatever you can on your paper. So it says, what is the ratio of first place ribbons? The solution, this one's pretty easy. We have 4 first place ribbons, and we're going to write our colon, and we have 3 third place ribbons. So you can also write this as 4 with the word 2 and 3, and then you can also write it as a fraction, 4 to 3. Are you looking for, so bonus, is this part to part to whole, or whole to part? Reminder, those words whole mean the total amount of all the ribbons. We didn't have to determine the total amount, so we know that this is a part to part ratio. Now looking at page number 6. Miss Powell's class voted on where to go for a field trip. The museum received 11 votes, and 16 students voted to go to the aquarium. Use numbers and words to write the ratio of votes for the aquarium to votes for the museum. So right here, if you wanted to draw a tape diagram, that would be amazing. I'm not going to do that on the computer, but I am going to use my words for my solution down here. So the museum used numbers and words to write the ratio of votes for the aquarium to votes for the museum. So using my words, ready? The aquarium received 16 votes and the museum received 11 votes. If I could spell. The ratio of aquarium votes to museum votes is 16 colon 11, or you could write that with the word 2, 16 to 11, or you can write it as a fraction, 16 over 11. So looking at number 11, this one says Donnie's dog had a litter of puppies. He notices that 2 are brown, 1 is white, and 3 are spotted. What is the ratio of total puppies to brown puppies? Circle the letter of the correct answer. So the total amount of puppies is going to be the first number that we're looking for. Because after they ask what is the ratio, we can see total. So 2 plus 1 plus 3 is 6. So I can immediately look at my 4 answers and determine my answer based off of those. This is a really good example of looking at your answers before looking at your question. So I can know, and I also, oh dear. Oh, it's down here. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. Little technical difficulties. So my correct answer is D, 6 to 2. And then somebody wrote, this is kind of like the puzzled penguin from 5th grade. Anya chose A as the correct answer. How did she get the answer? So this is it's a common misconception answer. Anya chose 2 to 6. Why do you think Anya got the wrong answer? What did she do incorrectly? She has the 2 right numbers, but she put them in the incorrect order. So she did everything right. She added up all the puppies to get 6 total. But she compared the brown puppies first when the total puppies was supposed to be first. Yikes is spelling. Okay. So now I want you to finish up the independent work. If you get stuck, come back to this lesson and go right ahead. Have a great day.